So this video is going to talk about the cosine function and transformation, specifically focusing on the vertical and horizontal shift. The horizontal shift is when your cosine function moves right and left, and the vertical shift is when your cosine function moves up and down. So let's take a look at this function, y equals 2 plus cosine of the quantity x minus 1. So here's what I know with that, is that this x minus 1 indicates that the graph of the cosine function is moving right 1. And then this 2 plus would indicate that vertical shift of up 2. So the period is going to be the same as the period for your cosine function, which is 2 pi. And the midline is going to be at 2, or y equals 2. And the midline is kind of goes along with your shifting up and down, that vertical shift. So I'm going to have here a midline at 2, at y equals 2. And we're going to be moving right 1. So typically our cosine function goes between 0 and 2 pi. So if I'm shifting it right 1, that means it's going to go between 1 and, let's see, 2 pi. That's 6.28, so 7.28. Okay. To graph this, the amplitude is 1. So using our midline as where our zeros would be, we have zeros at 1.57 normally for a cosine function and 4.71. So if I take the 1.57 and move it right 1, that's going to be at 2.57. I'm going to have a 0. Okay. And if I have the other 0 normally at 4.71 for our parent function, and if I move it right 1 and add 1, that's going to be 5.71. There we go. Okay, so there are our zeros. And then if I have our 0, 1, and it moves right 1 and up 2, I'm going to be at 1, 3. And that would mean I'm going to have the other maximum at 7.283 as well. Okay. Our minimum for our parent function is typically at pi negative 1. So if I add 1, that's going to be 4.14. And if it's normally at negative 1 and I go up 2, here is my new function with those transformations. Okay, I'm going to graph the parent function real quick so you can see it. We have our maximums and our minimum at pi negative 1. And then we have our zeros. So the orange is our parent function. And notice every point is moved right 1 up 2. Every single point is moved right 1 up 2. And that gets us our new function. So basically, if you take the parent function, apply your transformations, we're going to get our new function. So our parent function is in the orange, and our new function, y equals 2 plus cosine of x minus 1, is in blue. Okay, so let's take a look at this second graph. I'll do it in red. And we have y equals the cosine of the quantity x plus 1 minus 3. So what does this indicate? Well, this indicates I'm going left 1 and down 3. So I'm basically taking the parent function and moving every single point left 1, down 3. The period is going to be 2 pi, And our midline is going to be y equals negative 3. So let me go ahead and put that midline in. Here is our midline. And the period is 2 pi, so that means I should see the entire cosine wave within that period. And if it's moving left 1, and normally I'm at 0 to 2 pi, or 6.28, if I move 1 to the left, then that means it's going to be graphed between negative 1 and, well, instead of 6.28, that's going to be 5.28. Okay? So let's take our maximums, which normally happen at 0, 1, and 2 pi 1, and let's graph them. Notice we're going to use that midline as our 0. Normally our midline is at 0. It's moved down 3 this time. So that means if I am at, normally at 0, 1, and I move left 1, and then down 3, I am at negative 1. Let me put that in here. Negative 1, negative 2. Okay, and that would also indicate that my other maximum is going to be here at that 5.28 and negative 2. If I go halfway in between this, well, let's see, if I'm at 5.28 and go halfway, that would be the same as if I did the 3.14 and subtract 1, which is at this 2.14. Okay, and that minimum would here be moved down 3, and so instead of at negative 1, it's now going to be at negative 3. And if I look between, say, this negative 1 and this 2.14 and kind of think halfway, that's the same as if I would take that pi over 2, which is 1.57, and subtract 1. So I need 0.57 as my 0. And if I take that 3 pi over 2, which is 4.71, and I subtract 1, that's 3.71. And notice those zeros happen at that midline. And here is your cosine function of y equals cosine of x plus 1 minus 3. Now, if I would go ahead and graph that parent function, you'll be able to see exactly the transformation. So I'm going to do it in orange. And notice every single point from our parent function is moved left 1, down 3 to get our new function. Okay. So use your period and your midline along with the maximums and minimums and zeros of your cosine function in order to graph transformations of that cosine function.